The late night hammer is obvious, at least to me, but it could come down to a game time decision, which we can get into later. But game number 3, we have Bills at Saints. Buffalo is currently a 6-point road favorite in this one per FanDuel Sportsbook. So far, we're seeing some large bets come in on the home underdog with New Orleans, the over-under 45.5. So not quite game number 2 level, but the under does look to be getting some sharp action here. 76% of the money, only 30% of the betting tickets. Reeves, is this the hammer, or are people that are going to be fading this Cowboys game going to be disappointed?
I mean, the Bills always could be a potential hammer. I mean, at any time. I mean, they're one of the best offenses in the NFL. They haven't been it 2 of the past 3 weeks, but they still carry that, kind of weekly upside. Because they're a team that also, too, from a fantasy stance, like they're willing to just like throw it 70% of the time. So
right.
Against a really elite run defense like the Saints, and I actually, won't really stock what happened to the Saints run defense last week because I talked about it on a bunch of shows that I thought the Eagles were still going to be able to run the ball well against the Saints because of the rushing quarterback component. Like you have to defend the RPO in the run game, and the Eagles bring that to the party. The Bills don't really do that, even with having a mobile quarterback like Josh Allen. They don't really bring the full-on onslaught of running a designed scheme in the run game around Josh Allen being able to run. Sure. He's a guy he's going to take off more. Usually all his design stuff is in short yardage and near the goal line. So, I mean, I still think that this Saints run defense is legit and will definitely be able to stop this Bills running back, trio. It's now like the Cerberus now that Matt Breida has brought his name to the hat. He has the most yards between the 3 Buffalo backs the past 3 weeks. And has made it kind of a really sticky situation to kind of really chase, although they will be played this week. I might just outright just fade this and just say that one of these guys scores, so be it. Yeah. I think it's the only way to attack it instead of trying to get cute and have it. Because you're going to get, even if you get like Breida right or Zach Moss right or Singletary right, and you're like a max entry guy, like
what's the ceiling even at that point? Because the touches aren't high enough, right?
And what's the rest of your lineup you're going to get them right look like at?
Sure.
Like you're going to have like, so you go 10%. You go 10% on Zach Moss and he scores a touchdown. What if he's on the wrong builds? Like what? I'll probably just outright just fade it and see where it happens.
Yeah.
But so you have, I think what's going to be a pass heavy game for the Bills, given how the Saints defend the run. Also, we probably aren't going to see the Saints play a lot of zone coverage because they typically don't. They're the 7th most man heavy defense in the NFL. So they kind of won't change their stripes. They like to be aggressive. So that opens kind of the opportunity for it to be more of a passing game for the Bills. There's been a lot of chatter this week too about the Bills splits with Spencer Brown in and out of the lineup. I did some digging on this, because I kept saying with Spencer Brown, like he's not very good. He doesn't grade well at Pro Football Focus. He's terrible in ESPN's, pass block win rate. I'm like, what is the hang up here? What's the disconnect? Why are the splits so jarring? And I did some digging and I found out the actual splits aren't Spencer Brown splits. They're actually Cody Ford splits.
Oh God.
So when Spencer Brown plays, when he plays, Darrell Williams kicks in and plays right guard and just it's their optimal unit. So when Spencer Brown doesn't play and he's on the COVID list, so you might not be able to play again this week, Cody Ford has to play right guard. Cody Ford is allowing the 3rd highest pressure rate among right guards in the NFL. And he's absolutely getting destroyed. So it's not even that Spencer Brown's good. It's that they have to put this player that's absolutely getting just murked on the field.
Gotcha.
And the Saints have been a team that's below average in pressure rate this season, but they also have a high sack rate because they have some pass rushers that can get there on their own. But the Saints have really struggled against mobile quarterbacks this season. Obviously you just removed Jalen Hurts from the equation last week. Taylor Heineke had 40 rushing yards against them. Daniel Jones had another 27 rushing yards against them in the season. So, I mean, and they're giving up production to quarterbacks still in the sample. So, I mean, Josh Allen, I think people are looking for ways to fade him. But, I mean, like I said, the Cody Ford might be the reason. Yep. But, he's going to be popular outside of Dak. They'll be the 2 most popular quarterbacks. Diggs, it will be popular, and there's really no way to get away from it because when you look at the splits of man versus zone coverage, when teams play man coverage against the Buffalo Bills, Stephon Diggs has 33 targets. The next closest Bill has 13 targets on the season.
Yep.
I mean,
Harmon said the exact same thing, and it's not like we care at all about Lattimore and Diggs at this point. I don't at least.
Oh no, please, we would invite that. Like Lattimore's a good player, but like when you're talking about a guy that gets open at the rate like Stephon Diggs does, like you invite just having him be in one-on-one coverage. Remember last year when you won all that Stephon Diggs money, the New England Patriots played man coverage on Stephon Diggs.
And
Like
I mean,
JC
let's get
Jackson.
start. Let's start to push the narrative. Hey, this is a really bad spot for Marshawn Lattimore on the other side. You know what I mean? Like, let's start to play that up a little bit. Like, hey, covering this guy named Stephon Diggs, it's not easy to do. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But when you look at like when teams play zone coverage, the target tree gets way more condensed. Cole Beasley actually leads the team in targets against zone coverage. Then Diggs has 1 fewer, and then Emmanuel Sanders has 9 fewer. So it's all condensed. But when it's man coverage, when Josh Allen sees one-on-one coverage, my guy, I'm going to my guy.
Yeah. And you said this is like
gap,
one of the biggest or the most frequent teams for man coverage on the other
yeah,
side.
seventh highest man coverage rate in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they alter, right? Like they just realize, hey, we can't put Marshawn Lattimore on him, but
Maybe.
teams don't do that enough, right? Like we don't. So it's tough to get away from. If they're going to come out and put Marshawn Lattimore on Stephon Diggs, we're going to want a piece of it, right? Because Diggs is a guy that gets open. It's not like guarding Mike Evans one-on-one, a guy who isn't like quick twitch. He's not going to run a lot of double moves and do, so like he's going to have his hands full, basically. Like you said, it's a tough matchup for Marshawn Lattimore if they're going to ask him to do that, not the other way around.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to get away from Diggs just based on that, and he's easy to fit in. We've successfully done it in 2 other videos that you should check out.
Love it. The card will be right over here. Reeves, you're getting this YouTube stuff. It's amazing. We're looking at the Sims right now. Runthesims.com/Holka. Get you 10% off if you're a tier 2 or tier 3 member. 20% off. What this does, simulates the slate 10,000 times. Stephon Diggs in 35% of the optimal lineups as of now. Obviously a 3-game slate, but something like this is very valuable for these smaller slates in general. But what was interesting is looking at this, we see Mark Ingram is in here at the time of this video, 45% of the optimals. So do we have any definitive news on Kamara yet? Last I saw, this could be like a game time decision. And if that's the case, I want all the Kamara. I don't care what anyone else is doing, because if it's a game time decision, he will be in every single one of my flex spots, because at that point, you're going to get Kamara at what, sub 10%, because no one's going to care to late swap. So even if you don't end up playing Kamara, you can just pivot to him, to Diggs or whoever it is. I love the idea of building lineups with Kamara in them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely, from a game theory stance, does. I mean, I would say all information we've had so far, you would seem to be like he would miss this game.
Sure.
But he's not officially out, so keep that in mind. Obviously they tried to have him come back midweek last week, and he must have had a re-aggravation, just didn't respond well, because he did a limited practice Wednesday. They checked it out. You played sports. Didn't respond well. They shut him down. Now you play on Thursday. And do you say, all right, well, we play Thursday, we get him the extra time? The catch, though, is they play on Thursday again next week.
Sure. So maybe they'd push him one more. It would make sense. I'm just saying that, like, the idea of him even being a 5 to 10% like start, like just building some lineups to just put him in the flex, and you can always move those teams to Diggs, I think makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's double-edged. You can do just about anything you want with that salary.
Yep.
Open it up, and so, yeah, I mean, that's completely great. I mean, I love the idea too of one of these Saints backs late in the evening. Mark Ingram, we'll see. He's got a knee issue too, but it might have been just veteran rest, because he's had a extreme workload the past 2 weeks. He had 90% of the backfield touches and then 82% of the backfield touches last week. And you might say he's facing a tough defense, but if you're going to get 80 to 90% of the backfield touches, who cares? Like, especially when you're catching the football too, like Mark Ingram is. He's got 15 targets the past 2 weeks. And then you got touchdown equity, receiving equity, and backfield equity. It doesn't even matter like what if the matchup is tough or not. The Bills are one of these teams that, like, their run defense is good when they get ahead, because their base defense is nickel, right? Like they use those coverage linebackers. But when you stay in neutral game script on them, you can run the football on them. Their run defense is good because you get them into the situations where they're playing pass coverage, and you really can't run the football on them. We've seen teams that have good power backs be able to run on them. The Saints have had a banged up offensive line. That's the tough part. It's all these offensive linemen, they've gone in and out of the lineup for them, but I absolutely like the idea of Ingram if he's healthy enough to be a guy too that you can play in this game, and then if he doesn't play, you just play Tony Jones or later in the game, later in that matchup. Because if Mark Ingram doesn't play, the same thing's gonna happen for Tony Jones, right? He's just gonna inherit all that workload and all the receiving equity and all the touchdown equity. So like, I like that point. It might even
be better because no one's going to play him either, right? So like, there's so much of this game to like, even just from like, if you're going to be around a late swap and you have the stones to fade a little bit of game number 2 with Dallas and Las Vegas, and like, there's so many opportunities to get different here, I feel like.
Yeah, and the tricky part is going to be, what do we do? Do we treat the Saints wide receivers like the Bills backfield?
Sure. That was going to be my next question. Is I'm like handcuffed, almost like paralyzed by like almost like the entire Saints side of the ball outside of like the running back debacle that's happening with injuries, right?
Well, and Trevor Siemian has been an outright disaster in the first 3 quarters of all these games, and then is like the greatest quarterback in the earth on the fourth quarter of these games. They've been the Saints on 3 of the 3 starts by Trevor Siemian. They've been outscored 70-22 the first 3 quarters of these games. Siemian has completed less than half of his passes through 3 quarters, and for 5.7 yards per attempt. Then, when they're trying to dig out of this monstrous hole, he goes gangbusters. He's completing 69% of his passes in the fourth quarter. He's got 5 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in the fourth quarter of these games. 7.7 yards per pass attempt, because teams are lax and they get back in the game. The receivers are tough to kind of diagnose, though, because you've got Traquan Smith, who's playing a lot of snaps. He's run a pass route on 86%, 90%, and 97% of team dropbacks the past 3 weeks. But his receiving lines are just like, whatever. 3 for 53, 4 for 41, 5 for 64. Marquez Callaway is still getting there. He's a touchdown or bust guy, but on these types of slates, like, it's not terrible just to chase the touchdown equity guy, because he has 9 end zone targets on the season. No other player on the Saints has more than 3.
I like that.
So, I mean, if you're like, I feel like people want to play Traquan because he's a safer guy, but also if you're just throwing throwing the mortar shot, the guy that they actually like involve in the end zone is Callaway.
Well, he's going in our lineup. You convinced me before I forget. Obviously, we'll be building a lineup at the end of this video. I want to make sure that we get the touchdown scorer Callaway on the other side of the stack. So I'm with you, man. You convinced me. He's 5,700. He's way too cheap.
I mean, but like I said, you can also, I think, treat it like the Bills backfield and just say, whatever, I'm just going to fade all these guys. Because, and now that Adam Troutman's hurt too, he was a guy that was getting a significant target tree, the past month. He had 18% of the team targets the past 4 games. Are they just going to give those to Juwan Johnson and Nick Vannett? Probably doubtful, right? Pretty doubtful.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, do we play any of those guys? Do you play Juwan Johnson? Do you play Nick Vannett? It's,
This is like always the thing with these like secondary like New Orleans wide receivers. I feel like how many times even when Drew Brees is around are we sitting there just like, wait, who gets scored for the Saints? And, like, it's still the same crap. It's like so annoying. So yeah, you could in theory just fade this entire thing and just play all the Buffalo guys because it seems like it's a pretty amazing spot for Buffalo. And then you don't get too hung up on having a bring back or doing mini stacks. You just, I mean, we talked about it on the last video. Maybe you have your Diggs teams that you just add in Emmanuel Sanders or whoever it may be. That might be the way to play this. Or maybe you just play the Bills defense because it sounds like it's gonna be a rough day for Trevor Siemian as well. So I love the Bills side of this stuff. I'm trying to like maybe force in a Callaway, but man, it's just this Saints team looked horrible last week. Just absolutely horrible.
They've been horrible for a long time running.
Yeah.
And, like I said, they're getting like, because eventually, like, Trevor Siemian's not going to be able to punch his way out. Like, he's just going to be terrible for the fourth quarter too.
Yeah. I mean, you would think that this would be the matchup where he would just continuously be terrible, right? Like, this Buffalo defense is pretty good. I get what JT just did, but good God.
Yeah. I mean, but the Saints don't have a Jonathan Taylor.
This is true. This is true.
Or Derrick Henry, the other guy that bludgeoned them.
You don't think Mark Ingram is like Derrick Henry?
Yeah. What's that?
You don't think Mark Ingram can do like a JT performance in this spot?
Damn. I love Mark Ingram. I would love to cheer for it. I mean, he'd be the one guy, like I said, the Saints backfield I think is the most appealing piece just because the way they've constructed their offense this season by not having any good pass catchers and not having a good quarterback is they've been so running back centric. Even when through Kamara and now that Kamara's been out, they've still just funneled everything through the running backs.
Yeah.
So until like all hell's broke loose and they couldn't, right, in the fourth quarter of these games. But how do you not project the game script to go that way again, right? Like the Bills defense has been awesome. And I know that they've faced like a super light schedule, but again, what are we putting Trevor Siemian? What box are we putting him in?
Sure.
He fits the exact mold of all these other guys they faced.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how the Saints really like can match if the Saints give up points early in this game, I don't know how they really can pace things, but it's a short slate. Things happen.
Well, Reeves, I've already kept you too long today, so let's build a lineup. We do have a listener league for this, FanDuel.com/Holka. Get in there. We'll be going through kind of a main game stack for this one. One of the, I guess, things that's great about Buffalo is we know they're going to keep the pedal down, and they're also one of those teams that has a very high pass rate above expectation. Over the last 4 games, only Kansas City has a higher pass rate above expectation. So I'm going to go ahead and put Josh Allen on this team. We do have Marquez Callaway on this team as that placeholder. But if we were to, I guess, onslaught this, I kind of want to lean into some of these micro edges that you've been identifying. I'm trying to add this to my game, Reebs. So against man coverage, I'm just going to go ahead and put Stephon Diggs in this. Does this basically give us like kind of a bear signal for Cole Beasley? Like, would you prefer to get one of these other guys with Buffalo with Diggs?
Well, I mean, they said Beasley, all his target share really all comes against zone coverage.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So, I mean,
so maybe we don't go that direction.
I would say the guy that I would, if we really wanted to run a double here, I would lean towards Dawson Knox.
Okay, cool. We don't have a Knox team yet, and that gives us a little differentiation too.
Because of the touchdown equity he's carried when he plays.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like that.
I would say Dawson Knox would be my favorite, double. Although we did do a different one, just based on salary.
I like it, and I'm going to continue to pound the drum for this Buffalo defense on this slate because as you progress, you can always get different. I just refuse. And if a defense scores a touchdown in the first game, you'll just know that I'm going to have a really rough day because I just think that's just not optimal on these slates. I do the same thing in playoffs. So as of right now, we have all of our Buffalo players locked in. We have a Callaway player locked in on the New Orleans side, 6,700 the rest of the way. So we're definitely going to need a little bit of savings. But is there anyone, I guess we don't have a Montgomery team yet. I don't know if this would necessarily be the team where it fits, but who else have we not touched on, I guess, that you want to make sure we get into one of these lineups?
I mean, I think we pretty much touched on all like the ancillary and one-off guys throughout the course of the videos, the guys to get cute with, and I'm sure there'll be someone else kind of comes with that through the weeds.
Sure.
But I don't really, I'm not going to be a guy that's going to, I'm not going to sprinkle in Juwan Johnson. I'm just not, like you said, I'm not going to sprinkle in probably any of the Bills running backs. I'm probably not going to sprinkle in Noah Brown or if that happens. So. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered all the guys. Look at the guys I said, Marquise Goodwin and Josh Reynolds, I think are the two one-offs in the early games.
Yeah, so I think let's go a Swift Goodwin mini because then we differentiate a little bit with the Swift stuff versus Montgomery, and then it gives us Goodwin, which gives us a little bit of leverage off of the people that are just going to play Mooney. So still 6,700 the rest of the way for a running back and a flex. Anyone you want to jam in there?
Let's see. We had been trying to jam Diggs in, so we don't have.
We have Diggs. Diggs is in there right now.
I mean, we could play.
We could go. I'm trying to think of like in game number 2.
Well, we have no Cowboys.
We have no Cowboys. That is true. But we have our tight end slot gone. I know we really spoiler alert like Schultz quite a bit. We could go Gallup on this team and just eat some chalk because I think there's going to be plenty of differentiated players in here. Or we could go Zeke in this one, which I think for some reason he's still going to go under-owned. People are going to talk themselves into Tony Pollard. So if there's going to be like one piece of that game that goes off, I don't even mind like the Zeke one-off, to be honest.
Yeah, if we go Zeke, we're basically boxed in to do something like Gabe Davis.
I was just going to say, yeah, Gabe Davis, essentially. But if we moved off of the Bills defense, we could probably get a little bit more creative there. If we wanted to go to like the Cowboys defense in game number 2, that gets us to 5,500 in the flex, which is a little bit more palatable. We could go, oh man, it's still it's still not great. I'm not going to lie. It's still not great.
That's the interesting thing about this slate is the mid-priced guys are all bad.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe that's like, what does that even do for us? Essentially, I guess we could add an Amon St. Brown if we wanted to add to that mini in the first game, but it's not great.
I mean, the only other thing I could say is if you wanted to swap Callaway to Ingram,
we could do that.
But
I like having a ton of pieces in that game just because then if Kamara is like obviously a late addition that we aren't expecting, then you still have the flexibility to get there. Man, it's crazy because we could almost get to adding in Gabe Davis to this. I'm going to see if we put Gabe Davis in, and if we move down at defense, what it could do, 3,800 defense.
Well, Saints, you could put the Saints in.
That's what I'm thinking.
And then you just have all the flexibility to change whatever the hell you need.
You're building this team as if you're moving it anyway, right? So like you're basically seeing what information do I have from Marquise Goodwin, DeAndre Swift. And if that is going even like reasonably, then you can go ahead and leave in Zeke. And then you have all the flexibility in the world to, after those games happen, you figure out what you want to do from there in game number 4 or game number.
Well, because we already showed you too. You can get up to Bills defense. You can go down to Callaway from Ingram. There's a lot of movement you can do.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Short on time this week, so I want everyone to know that there are a bunch more videos for the 3-game slate on this playlist right here, and we'll see you guys on Sunday.